President Batang as his topic. He chose determination in his exhortation. His first text was in 2 Chronicles 2:1. Then Solomon determined to build a temple for the name of the Lord and a royal house for himself. He then read two more passages in Romans 13:7-8 and 2 Timothy 2:1-10. He ended up telling us success is ahead of you. This term you, I took it in my heart that day personally. My experience at the N'Djamena Bible School was totally different. After the morning worship by dormitory, we went out to cut grass under the direction of our class leader, who was called prefect. After this chore, everyone decided, according to their means, to get breakfast. I mention the means because some students fed at the restaurant and others with limited means cooked for themselves. It was not just breakfast, but in terms of the food area. The courses were translated from English into French or from French into English according to the teachers of the day. The Reverends Keminfe Theodore, Mambu Leonard, and Kiesi Etienne were our teachers who taught in French and translated into English. Principal Apostle John Anau, Reverend Ngoto Thomas, Reverend Akpos and David, and several other guest speakers taught in English and translated into French. It was a way for me to learn English during those 3 academic years. I did not want to skip this parenthesis. Almost 4 or 5 days passed. We ate only rice and our supplies of peanuts. In other words, something else eatable but not boule. For those who do not know the boule, this is a type of food in Africa that is prepared in different ways. Among the Saras, our tribe, it is prepared by leathering millet flour, cassava, rice, and earth peas in the water to make it supple and sticky, then rolling it to make balls. In the English-speaking environment, it is called fufu. It is eaten with vegetable, fish, or meat soup. As I mentioned the lack of this special food, my colleague said to me, "That is terrible. Not eating the boule all these days, but we're going to die." My worries were less because living in N'Djamena single and then being separated from my wife for a few years, the absence of boule in my diet was not a problem. This first week was hard, but after that, we got used to the new way of life. However, later we arranged to insert the boule into our food ration. The Association of Chadian Apostolic Churches did not have a fixed budget for us. The churches were collecting and the amount received was transferred to us by Pastor Ronel Didier. The rarity of these transfers pushed us to go back home during Christmas break to raise money on my side at the capital in N'Djamena and my friend in the south of Chad. During the Easter break, I had stayed in Kumba, but Joshua went to Yaoundé to negotiate a financial aid at the Embassy of Chad in Cameroon without a good result. On April 23, 2005, our son Daniel was born. For him, I received the name in a dream. The first year ended, and we went to Chad. It was at that time, like the case of Sephora, that I saw and kissed Daniel. My 2.5 months spent in Chad were mostly spent raising money for our financial support. Thank God we had received financial aid from the churches, members of our families, and many volunteers. Baroumbaye, who was the host in N'Djamena of my colleague Josue, was one of the key characters to raise money. He typed the forms of request for support and helped a lot financially. The idea of looking for help everywhere on the internet or checking emails by Chad was the cause that when we returned for the academic year 2005-2006, I spent more weekends at the cyber cafe. The college did not give us access to the internet, so we must pay for the hours of use. The schedule was the same, but there was less stress. Cooking was my domain, so I cooked a lot and I did it with joy without any whispers. One practice that helped me a lot at ABBC was fasting and prayers. I received the revelations in my dreams, but I kept for me if they were personal. On Monday, September 19th, 2005, at night, I had a dream where I was with the white officials who looked after the children. Immediately, I realized that the idea coincided with my plan to write to Carolyn, an American woman who Florence met at Aglo in 2001. It was to ask her to sponsor us so that I could continue my theological studies and Florence could work with children as she did and go and create a center for children in Chad. Another Monday night, October 24th, 2005, I had another dream. I was in the courtyard of an office of the minister. There were names displayed for theological studies. Among the beneficiaries, I clearly saw my name for a faculty in Israel. Israel for me was Europe, because it coincided with my online application for registration for the faculty at Strasbourg. Being very happy to see my name, the secretary of this office told me to hurry up to compile my dossiers. October 25th, 2005 was not the weekend, but I decided to go check my emails, but there was no good message. Only outside the cyber cafe at the entrance, the owner posted the result of the candidates who applied in 2003 to the website, www.lotterystate.gov. I had seen, among other countries, Chad with a very short list of beneficiaries. The list of names of people from other countries was long, even those in Cameroon. In my curiosity, I asked what these names were. Daniel, the owner, told me that these were people who applied for the American lottery in 2003 and that the result was out in 2005. It was an opportunity for lucky people to go live and work in the United States. I asked him why Chadians were so few. He told me maybe Chadians did not want to travel. I was interested and asked him if people were still doing it. He said that October was the month chosen for the application. I had returned to the campus, and every day I prayed for divine guidance. On Saturday, October 28, 2005, at the end of the classes, I isolated myself to pray again and went to the cyber cafe. Immediately, Daniel, the manager, called his photographer friend. He took my picture and printed it in passport size. Daniel scanned the photo to attach to the application. No more than 30 minutes, the confirmation note appeared on the screen. He printed and handed it to me. As he was familiar with the application procedure, he recommended me to keep the piece of paper well and wait until May or June 2006 for the result. What he wrote in the application was my first and last name, my date of birth, my profession, and my marital status. For marital status, I wrote fiancé, as Florence and I did not have a marriage certificate from the commune. I put the address of the Bible School of Chad, as I did not have my personal post mailbox. This application I made was very reassuring, so I stopped spending too much on the internet, if not just to check my emails. The year 2005-2006 was less scary because we got used to the food and teachers, as they were the same ones who continued to teach except for a few guest speakers. The college sent us to local churches for the internships on Sundays. In one of these local churches, I met Papa Kema, who would play an important role in my journeys in the future. We had returned to Chad at Christmas break, but at Easter break, Josue had gone to the north of Cameroon with Bakari, a colleague, and I was invited to Bamenda in the northwest of the country, to Apostle Ayong Joseph's house. I preached at a conference and returned to Kumba financially blessed. During the holidays of 2006, at the beginning of June, my colleague had gone to SAR south of Chad for his internship, and I had to do mine in Ngweli. Our internships were mandatory for our study agenda. As I was present in N'Djamena, I went to Director Mailbaye David, who replaced the previous Western directors. I asked him if he had not received a letter in my name coming from somewhere. He said no. A slight despair grew in me, but my hope always remained firm. This was the period that Daniel, who was responsible of the cyber cafe, told me in Cameroon, but maybe there was a bit of delay. I did not ask for the letter again, but in August I was passing through Esdras, and the director brought me a large envelope with this address: Kentucky Consular Center, 3505 N Highway 25W, Williamsburg, KY 40769. Return service requested. As I read the Kentucky, USA address, I told him that this was the letter I asked him for in June. He apologized because at the time he received the mail, he put it together with those of the missionary who was on vacation in France. He had just returned and told him that this letter was for me. I did not blame David, but I knew that the devil was fighting God's plan in my life. To avoid allowing the devil to play more with bad thoughts in my mind, I thanked David and went home immediately. I opened the letter and the first page put me in an inexpressible joy. So I knelt to thank God and asked him to give me wisdom for the rest of the process. 4950 no base em Baroumbaye. An idea came to me to talk to my friend Jigueri and his Nigerian collaborator who were staying at the orphanage located outside the city of N'Djamena. Very clearly, both were not available to help me because of their multiple occupations. I left them to go home a little disappointed because the time limit was getting very short. To move faster, I used my French-English dictionary to be able to answer questions. The responses were written according to each page in the sheets. I had gone to the market and found a gentleman typing customers' texts with the typing machine. I explained to him my goal, which was to insert the words or sentences in blank spaces of my documents. To be sure of the job well done, I stayed with him all the way. He would insert each page and manually he could manipulate the pages. from top to bottom and from left to right to find the blank spaces to fill. The work took time, but he did it impeccably. I paid for it, and without delay, I went to make photocopies. I put in the envelope the originals and went to the central post office in N'Djamena to ship to the address given in the documents. As this phase was over, I was starting to think about the passport. I spoke to my brother-in-law Eloy, the husband of my younger sister Elizabeth, who gave me 100,000 francs CFA 200. The next day I started the procedure, and through my police neighbor Malone, I got my passport before the end of my vacation. As the fundraising in 2006 was fruitful, I thought that the academic year 2006-2007 should be happier, but the devil orchestrated a terrible attack. In September 2006, Josue and I returned to Kumba. As it was the weekend, I took the opportunity to announce the good news of the result of my application to Daniel, the owner of the cyber cafe. That was when the truth came out, and it was for my good. He said, "Nuba, congratulations, but you were lucky. I applied 3 successive years, and I never had the chance. And just the first time you were retained. Truly, your God is alive. If he had told me about his failures before, I was not even going to try. I told him that I filled out the documents. I sent to the United States by post office before returning from vacation. He was not convinced of my mailing.